Very early in the morning, on the first day of the week, the women went to the tomb, bringing the fragrant spices they had prepared. They found the stone rolled away from the tomb, but when they went in, they didn't find the body of the Lord Jesus. They didn't know what to make of this. And suddenly, two men were standing beside them in gleaming bright clothing. The women were frightened and bowed their faces toward the ground, but the men said to them, "Why do you look for the living among the dead? He isn't here, but he's been raised. Remember what he told you while he was still in Galilee, that the human one must be handed over to sinners, be crucified, and on the third day rise again." And then they remembered his words. And when they returned from the tomb, they reported all the findings to the 11 and all the others. It was Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary the mother of James, and the other women with them who told these things to the apostles. Their words struck the apostles as nonsense, and they didn't believe the women. But Peter ran to the tomb, and when he bent over to look inside, he saw only the linen cloth. And then he returned home, wondering what had happened. This is the word of God for us, the people of God. Thanks be to God. Please be seated.
Will you pray with me? God of love and God of grace, this is your time and we are your people. Open our hearts, our minds, and our lives to your presence that we would receive your word and respond with all that we are. Amen. Wouldn't be Easter if interesting things didn't happen. I looked down at my notebook just a minute ago. I feel like it's good to share this and confess this morning. I did not have my sermon notes printed off. And Alyssa, who leads the music so well and is my spouse, was like, "I'm going to run to your office and do this for you. I do not want you to wing this on Easter. Thank you." So whether you love it or hate it, I would say talk to Alyssa after. Thanks. We're here on Easter. This, for all intents and purposes, is why we gather every other week of the year. This is the key story that gives meaning to the Christian faith. That life is more powerful than death. That in the beginning, when God made everything and said, "It is good, it is supremely good," that God was continuing to invest in us to, even when we would cause harm and destruction, to restore and rebuild and renew and make right. And the deepest darkness that we face, the greatest injustice and evil and oppression that might occur in this world, God says, that is not the end of the story. That is not what defines you. That is not who you are. Even in the smallness and ordinary moments of the things that cause us the deepest pain, in death, in grief, in loss, in pain. Today we gather to say that is not who we are. We are connected by love. We are connected by light. We are connected by the life that breathed everything into existence. That is what gathers us today. No pressure on the preacher. You know, on Christmas and Easter, it's so interesting because truly there is nothing new to say. There is no enlightening word I can offer that will maybe open this up in some way that has not been explored in the previous 2,000 years that people have been engaged with this story and this hope. But we offer what we have today and who we are today. So I'm thankful to gather again for another Easter. I'm thankful to turn to this core foundation of our identity once again. Now, we have this very bold sermon title today about Eyewitness. I think that may presuppose a few things. I will say I had a mentor in seminary who would say, maybe don't make your sermon title the problem for your sermon to solve, but here we are. I think there's an assumption, right? The eyewitness of the resurrection, you're going to give me some proof, yes? You're going to give me some scientific evidence, yes? Some great argument that I can take back with me to make sure that I am right, yes? No. I can't offer you that. In fact, I think we can look at eyewitness accounts in our modern court system, we found that they are incredibly unreliable. In fact, the one kind of evidence we would really like to make sure this is right, some DNA evidence to prove where Jesus was and what happened to Jesus, we don't have that to look to, friends. What do we do with this eyewitness account in this story? How do we make sense of it? And where do we see truth in it? If you wonder those questions today, friends, we are in good company, because those very first disciples who heard that first Easter sermon from the women who saw the tomb was empty said, "This feels a little like nonsense to me." And I think that is a logical way to think. Who among us has seen someone return from the dead? And being, an outgoing male leader, Peter decides, I've got to see this for myself, thank you. Runs to the tomb, sees it for himself. And again, we don't get the shouts of hallelujah. We don't get the proclamation that says, oh, he did it. He told us he was going to rise from the dead, and here it is. We have Peter walking away in wonder. I would invite us today to wonder, to the mystery of it. I may not have the clearest thing to give you to say, this is the proof for the world. But we may stand together in wonder and awe of a mystery, not to solve it, but to see what transcends from it. There are a lot of questions about the empty tomb that ask who we are. How do we respond when disaster hits? How do we respond in loss, in pain? How do we confront death and destruction? The Christian faith, at least in part of what we'd call the Western world, asked that today, when it seems like a lifetime ago, but it was only Monday when the Notre Dame Cathedral caught fire and was destroyed, this holy site for centuries. You'll see here, this is a picture that has been around the news a lot. All the rubble, all the destruction, and then the cross remains. I think this could be an interesting metaphor for hope in destruction, for faith in the midst of struggle and pain. I also think that the whole event itself has some interesting questions for the Christian faith. There's been this big rally around, like, we're going to rebuild. This is going to be made right. Okay. So maybe we look at the destruction and the death or the pain and say, what's going to come out of the ashes? I wonder about this cathedral, but I really wonder what that cathedral looks like for all of the faith as a metaphor. I don't think it's groundbreaking news to say that Christianity does not always get the best PR. And that Christianity is not just in our culture, in our American sphere, and in kind of the Western European landscape, just the booming thing to be a part of. And sometimes for good reason, because harm has been done to people. Like real harm to maybe children or women, or people who identify as LGBTQ or of different races. Real harm has been done, and it has taken the credibility away from the church. And I think in many ways, when you look at Christianity or the church writ large, you could say, man, it looks like that big institutional thing is kind of burning down, and there's some institutional destruction happening. What do we do with that? Where is resurrection in that? Is our response to say, we're going to make it better and do the same things we've always done, but do more of them? Or is there something else to wonder at, what could come from the ashes? Are there some things that need to be let go of in the way we do things, whether personally in our hearts or collectively in our faith, so that something new might transcend, even if we don't know what it is quite yet? I wonder about that today. I wonder what God wants to renew, restore, make right for us right now, whether that is Like I said, in your own heart and life, in your family, in Grace Avenue United Methodist Church, in the United Methodist Church, because goodness knows we have our own issues, and in Christianity writ large. We come to celebrate the resurrection, but we come in need of it. We can clear the picture there. How do we respond? The empty tomb is such a peculiar thing to base your movement on. I think Palm Sunday was an easier rallying cry, if you have to ask me. We have a political protest going into the capital, into where the religious and political and economic life happens, and we're saying, here is the alternative, back our guy. Praise the King who's with us now. A little harder whenever that leader is executed and taken out of the picture. What a peculiar thing to wonder at. And what seems nonsensical that those followers would look at the tomb and say, oh yeah, we got to keep going. What would arise from the destruction and the pain and the grief was a story that makes very little sense, that doesn't have a great resolution, and yet it gave more life to their following of Jesus maybe than when they had him with them. I always puzzle at that. It's this great paradox. I've used the word paradox a lot over this Lent, but I think it's so true of our faith. The people who followed Jesus most closely so often in the Gospels are the people who seemed the most confused about Jesus. The ones who had the truth, the light, the life of God right there with them seemed most clueless about what that grace and that love was supposed to look like. Jesus would be welcoming all kinds of people, feeding all kinds of people, teaching and serving all kinds of people. And then there was always some disciple who'd be like, hey now, excuse me. This doesn't seem right, Jesus. I don't understand why we're doing it this way. And then there would be this mysterious conversation where Jesus would have some transcendent idea of hope that we were just supposed to get on board with. How peculiar then, when they struggled so hard to follow him and they had an easy out, that when the tomb was empty, when they had no evidence of their Lord, they decided to live as if it was even more true. Their response to the pain, the grief, and the loss, and even the confusion of that Easter morning was to live as if he was the greatest truth of love and grace that they had ever known. And we live in the wake of that. We didn't always get it right in our Christian history, yes? But we are here as a product of others who decided to love like Jesus and serve like Jesus. And even if the story didn't make any sense, they were going to heal and feed and welcome like Jesus. The rest of the New Testament is kind of the rest of that story as it spreads all over their known world, in sometimes controversial and nonsensical ways. How do we respond today? When we see the tomb is empty, when we wonder if this makes any sense, what is the account we're going to offer? Now say, I really would love to have the argument to give you to give the scientific philosophical proof. But all I can offer instead is a love that I think to be true. When I said during the announcements that this church is about this why of a home in God's love, through my experience and through my relationships, I just know that the hope of new life is true in people who have loved me well, people who have given me grace, people who have forgiven me. I know it in this church. I showed up 25 years old, having been able to preach a really good sermon if you gave me 6 or 8 weeks to prepare. In this church where when I showed up 6 years ago, if I had to make a hospital call, I had to circle the block a couple extra times to get myself in the confidence to walk into the hospital and sit with somebody. Where I have said the wrong things at the wrong times. Where I have offended from the pulpit or in a meeting or in my office or in some kind of social media post. Places where some people, I'm amazed that we were still in a relationship because of all the ways that I've gotten it wrong. And this church over and over again has brought life to this love that Christ proclaimed, has offered me new life when I have needed grace and a second chance, has stood beside Alyssa and I in times that we have had grief and doubt and struggle and said, you are not alone, and the darkness does not define you. It may not be the logical argument that I can offer you this morning, but it is receiving a life of love, and I hope offering a life of love alongside you. I really resonate with the way that Peter Rollins talks about this. I shared this last night. I was here for Holy Saturday, which is this beautiful time of waiting. If you've been in worship with me before, you know I really like unresolved things and doubt and struggle, and not that faith makes it all better, but that what a beautiful thing that faith doesn't have to make those things right. I love this quote in the context of waiting for the resolution of Easter, but I love it even more with our decision to respond at Easter and what we're going to do about the resurrection. Peter Rollins offers these thoughts for us this morning. Without equivocation or hesitation, I fully and completely admit that I deny the resurrection of Christ. This is good news, friends, right? This is something that anyone who knows me could tell you, and I am not afraid to say it publicly, no matter what some people may think. I deny the resurrection of Christ every time I do not serve at the feet of the oppressed. Each day that I turn my back on the poor, I deny the resurrection of Christ when I close my ears to the cries of the downtrodden and lend my support to an unjust and corrupt system. However, there are moments when I affirm that resurrection, few and far between as they are. I affirm it when I stand up for those who are forced to live on their knees, when I speak for those who have had their tongues torn out, when I cry for those who have no more tears left to shed. We can look at a story that doesn't make any sense. We can look at an institution of faith that seems like it is failing and burning down. And we can wonder, where is new life, new hope for us personally? I know the hope of a life that transcends death and darkness and evil and oppression through a love that is brought to life in this community. That says you have a home in grace. You have an advocate in solidarity, that all are welcome and belong here. I want to respond like those first disciples who said, it may not make sense, but I'm going to live as if this love is true. I wonder what transformation might come from us that might reverberate what has come before us. That even if it doesn't make sense, we go from this place today to live as if love wins. To meet this world in a way that says death does not have the final answer. Oppression, injustice, exclusion, inequality, inequity, those things are not the story of humanity. We will live alongside our neighbors to say, you are not alone, you are loved, you are empowered, you are heard, you are healed, you are welcome, you are whole. It may not be that we show up with our words to argue and be right. It may be that we offer all that we have and all that we are so that the wholeness of God that we rally around today might be real in this world, not only because God has acted, but because God has moved through us, friends. One of my favorite things, and I hope you've heard me say it before, is from my friend Reverend Joe Stobaugh. We look at this world and the death, the destruction, the despair, and we may look to God and say, what are you going to do about this? And God says, well, I've made you. I pray that that is the account that we offer this day. The love that we would bring to life alongside those who have rallied around this empty tomb. Amen.